tonight's episode of Café con Gas. I'm just checking my audio. We're still in the radio room, as you can see. And let's do a street shot. Here's what's going on in Cambridge. Check out the traffic, pedestrian traffic. We're live from Cambridge Community Television, and I'm really excited to be here with you tonight. It's still summer, yes, for 2 more days. Summer officially ends on September 22nd. What are you doing to prepare for the end of summer? Have you already mourned it on Labor Day? Are you just as petrified as I am not to have as much sunlight? I hope you guys are doing well. Excuse me, I'm just trying to set something up here. Okay, there we go. I did something new, and I did some advocacy for myself. And let me just fix this mic. So yeah, I did some advocacy for myself, and I'm really excited because I am going to get a full spectrum light box. And I posted this on my Café con Gas Facebook page, but a full spectrum light box is essentially just a box that emits UV rays. It's supposed to mimic light therapy. Was also gonna do I'm taking some vitamin D supplements. As excited as you see that I am on the show, it's also because I've gotten some sunlight today and I feel great. And when I don't feel so great. And really, no pill can help that. I just need sunlight. I'm a sun baby. My parents come from a tropical island. It's in my genes. I need the sun. I'm not used to rainy places. And I heard that there's really high suicide rates in some rainy places. So that's that. So emotional check-in. You're tuning into Café con Gas. What is Café con Gas? If you haven't watched this show before, Café con Gas is a show that brings dialogue alive on healing, arts, and diversity with occasional guests. I am really, really excited to tell you that I have secured a guest for the show. We're in the studio, so I'm not sure if the call-in function is going to work, but I think I'm going to come into the studio next week to test it out so I can bring our special guest on to next week's show. So our guest, I don't know, I can't tell you, but I'll say that she is a healer. She's a well-known healer. She's someone that uses astrological forecasts in combination with social justice. So she's very relevant, and she also uses a tool. Not everybody is completely not cognizant. Not everybody's convinced that astrology can be a tool, but we're going to have like an ultimate expert with a ton of Facebook followers here to tell us how she uses astrology as a tool. And if you're a skeptic, why you should tune in to the stars. So that's kind of what's going on. Last week on Café con Gas, we did something a little bit different, and we did our Sunday night top 8 at 8. I had a lot of fun doing it, and we ran out of time. So you can check out the shows or just inbox me if you want a playlist. I really enjoyed doing that because, as I had mentioned, I grew up watching MTV, Total Request Live, and I've always had this secret dream to be a VJ. And, Jon Stewart got his start being a VJ too. He had a show. He did a lot of hokey things. And he also had a show, like a heavy metal review show. And on his last episode, he actually interviewed comedian Conan O'Brien. So it's an interesting progression. He got his days started on MTV. So I just wanted to do like a little tribute to that. So that felt really good. So what is going on? We don't have a picture-in-picture. So I'm going to go over to our Mac. So you're here watching Café con Gas. That's what's going on. I do an emotional check-in at the beginning of each episode to promote emotional literacy and also get used to you seeing someone talk about emotions. What is a civic journalist doing talking about her emotions? I am giving you some data and also encouraging you to go and check yourself. So I'm about to check myself in front of all of you. How am I feeling today? Oh, heart, sorry. I'm feeling a little bit exhausted. I'm feeling really happy. I'm feeling slightly cautious because I walked over here and the sun's going down, so I didn't get as much sunlight. I walked the long way down Prospect Street instead of kind of taking the shortcut, kind of where I'm not going to name the street because I don't want people following me. But instead of taking a back street that I usually take, that won't get me into, that takes a little bit of a shorter time. I decided to take the long route and go down Prospect because I wanted to be safe and it's well lit and there's other people outside. So that's what's going on. So I'm feeling that. I'm also feeling a little bit shocked. Let's talk about it. Shocked and angry at the defunding of Planned Parenthood, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. And actually shocked is probably not the appropriate word. I'm absolutely livid. Slightly overwhelmed, but hopeful. It's just so many things that are going on in the news. One major thing that has happened, Sábado Gigante se acabó su programa. And I'm not ready to talk about it yet. I'm going to bring a clip for next episode, but I watched his farewell and I cried. And I do an emotional check-in, but I also want to give you guys the rest of the show. And I literally, it was just such a class act. And actually, Gloria Estefan, Emilia Estefan, they made a song for the show called Hasta Siempre. And it was just, like forever long. And he was so classy. He said that he's dedicated his life to the show for his whole life. And he says, something that I do 24/7, I couldn't do it without family. And he also brought everybody onto the show. So I thought it was a beautiful effort. And he was just really cognizant about family and just really a class act. Apparently he hadn't slept at all on Friday, so I hope that he's sleeping and resting well. So, let's give it up for Sábado Gigante. He also had the longest healing variety show on television, and his show ran for 53. Yes, 53. It may be 54. I'm pretty sure it's 53. Again, I'm not reporting on Sábado Gigante tonight. So next week I'll tell you if it's 54 or 53. But it was the longest running show on television. And he had variety. He had astrologers. He had talent. He had comedians. He had some in-house people. He had models like they do on The Price is Right. He had interviews. And he did the show every Saturday. And it was pretty epic. So let's give it up for Sábado Gigante. I also wanted to talk about something. Again, if you're tuning in, Cassandra, Café con Gas is a show that's on healing, arts, and diversity with occasional guests. I wanted to bring up some local news, and there is a resolution for the Jane Doe case. And a small child, a 2.5-year-old, washed up on the shores of Winthrop Beach, a place that I used to go to a lot and have a deep connection with. And her body was finally identified. And I just wanted to have a moment of silence for Bella Nevea Amoroso Bond. Her body was identified. Her mother was found. The boyfriend is being charged. Unfortunately, there is not a good, this is a very tragic story, but also a story that I encourage you not to read or listen to with assumptions. There was neighbors who said they used to hear her and they didn't. There was also a lot of drug use in the house. And the boyfriend is being convicted of murder. So I'll tell you this, on multiple levels, if you're a domestic violence survivor and you're listening to this story, or if you're watching the news and you see this coming on, this can be extremely triggering to you. And I just wanted to have a moment of silence for the young child. So may she rest in power, and may her spirit move on, and may she have a sense of peace now that we have identified her body, and officials are now moving into the prosecution stage. So I'm going to flip over to the computer screen, and with me, if you can join me in a moment of silence for Bella Nevea Amoroso Bond. Thank you for joining me in that moment of silence. And I asked you to do so in any way that you do. It doesn't have to be, in from a specific religion, but just simply have a moment to reflect, and also, wish the deceased well. If you believe in whatever beliefs you do, just wish that she rests. She rests, and I say in power, because she was a victim of a very senseless crime. So that's kind of what's going on. All right, so we're going to transition to also another heavy topic, but we're going to bring some light to it, because this is a topic that a lot of people, they survive suicide or they idealize suicide. So this month is Suicide Prevention Month. And Suicide Prevention Month, there is a lifeline and a website that I pulled up, suicidepreventionlifeline.org. There's also a variety of resources that you can go to. You can call domestic hotlines. You can call your behavioral health. You can call 911. You can call a friend. You can call a trusted one. And I wanted to share something with you, because not a lot of people know, if you do call a hotline and you do say that you are suicidal and you have a plan, they will send an ambulance to come and take you to the emergency, regardless if you snap out of it or not. They will take care of you, and they will send for help. So I just listed this number, and I actually also have a resource and something that I wanted to read to you. And I'm actually really surprised at how much I enjoyed this radio room and being behind this mic. This is really great. And I'm going to do something in tribute to my Reading Rainbow days, and I'm going to pull out a book, and I want to read to you part of this book. And it is about suicide, and it is from the author Eckhart Tolle, and it's a guide to spiritual enlightenment. And I'm just going to let his introduction speak for himself. He talks about having thoughts of suicide. So, you know, there's some statistics that a lot of people who commit suicide have a mental illness and it could have been prevented. There's also situational depression, there's chronic depression, there's PTSD, schizophrenia, there's a multitude of mental illnesses that you can go to NAMI, the National Association for Mental Health, to check out some diagnostic materials. But you can also read about suicide in self-help books and also in other spaces, talk circles, or like I said, you know, depending on your support system and what's available for you, just reaching out and talking to someone is really important. And I wanted to read you something about idealization. And so this is the introduction by Eckhart Tolle. It's called The Power of Now. And he talks about the origins of his book. I wanted to read to you guys or ladies or people, doggies, whoever is listening to me right now. And it's a really great summary of what you can do to shift your life and how some people are able to do that. Some people do that with the aid of medication. Some people do that with the aid of a very profound experience. Some people do that with the aid of friends. The prescription for suicide prevention is unique for each individual, and I hope that's something that we can celebrate this Suicide Prevention Month. So Eckhart Tolle, in his introduction, I haven't gotten through the book, but this was a great dumpster dive find, and dumpster diving is. I'm just giggling because my roommate makes fun of me. She's like, "You're such a hipster for dumpster diving," and I'm like, "I'm not a hipster. Like, it's called thrift shopping." Basically, I walked by this book and I just scooped it right up. It was in a free books box when I was walking to work. So this is really interesting. So he writes, "I have little use for the past and rarely think about it. However, I would briefly like to tell you how I came to be a spiritual teacher and how this book came into existence. Until my 30th year, I lived in a state of almost constant anxiety interspersed with periods of suicidal depression. It feels now as if I am talking about some past lifetime or somebody else's life. One night not long ago, after my 29th birthday, I woke up in the hours with a feeling of absolute dread. I had woken up with such a feeling many times before, but this time it was more intense than it had ever been. The silence of the night, the vague outlines of the furniture in the dark room, the distant noise of a passing train, everything felt so alien, so hostile, and so utterly meaningless that it created me in a deep loathing of the world. What was the point in continuing to live with this burden of misery? Why carry on this continuous struggle? I could feel a deep longing for annihilation, for non-existence. It was now becoming so strong, and that instinctive desire is much stronger than the instinctive desire to live. I cannot live with myself any longer. This was the thought that kept repeating in my mind. Then suddenly I became aware of what a peculiar thought it was. Am I one or am I two? If I cannot live with myself, there must be two of me, the I and the self, that I cannot live with. And maybe I thought one of them was real. I was so stunned that the realization that my mind stopped. I was fully conscious, but there was no more thoughts. I heard the word. I was gripped by an intense fear, and my body started to shake. I could feel myself being sucked into a void, and I felt as if the void was inside of me rather than outside. Suddenly, there was no more fear, and I let myself fall into that void. I have no recollection of what happened after. He then talks about being profoundly awake and having the experience, an experience of becoming his own self. And in that realization saying, I cannot live with myself, him asking, what is this self that I'm living with? And what was his attachments to pain? So he talks about having this experience in his 29th year of life. Also, to preface, in the name of diversity, because the show is about healing art to diversity, you know, Eckhart Tolle was born in Germany. And he talks about the spiritual transformation. He was a professor, and then he decided to change his life. And I really like that explanation, saying that if you're saying to yourself, I can't live with myself anymore, what part of you is battling the other, and how can those parts come together, or what can we really let go of? Not everybody has this profound awakening like this. A lot of people go through hospitalization and psychiatric treatment, and they go in and out of the hospital. So I offer you this as an experience that you can have, but also keeping in mind that, you know, as I offer these resources, there are a multitude. If you don't have the same experience and you are caught in the cycle of depression, just go and ask for help, because everybody goes through their own experience. So I hope that you continue to explore what that is for yourself. And there's a difference between suicidal attempts and suicidal idealization. Suicidal idealization is more of the like idealizing, like if you get desperate, saying like the only way I can get out of this is if I kill myself. That's idealizing. Actually going through with the plan is a different story. But if you're idealizing, you're used to that thought of suicide as being the only way out, and there are other options to get out, but it definitely takes time to build and pursue them. So I encourage you to do that for your life. And if you have a loved one suffering from that, encourage them to also go seek out help. So those are some resources that I think you guys will really benefit from checking out. On the next topic, again, I'm going to talk about this more in next week's episode, because I want to show Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren talking about I stand with Planned Parenthood. But it's been a really hard week in the news, and I just encourage everybody, watch your sensory diet. A lot of what's happening, we know that there are some issues in America. We know that the Republican Party has been really speaking on a lot of ignorance. So if you're feeling sick of watching the news, take a break. It's not like you're not going to be informed. Talk to your neighbor, talk to your friends, kind of lean into your community. I've had to do that this week, and it's helped me a lot. So I just wanted to bring that for you. On Friday, there was really big news that Planned Parenthood got defunded in a House vote. So I'm just going to go right to our resident expert, Cambridge resident, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and she gave a speech in, hopefully this will play. Yeah, she gave, oh, that's really loud. So I'm happy that I almost played that, because I was going to blast your ears out. She gave a speech to the Senate. I'm going to play this for you, because before this decision was made to defund Planned Parenthood, mind you, 97% of Planned Parenthood is women's health services. Only 3% of Planned Parenthood goes to abortions. So all this rhetoric on abortions, and that being what Planned Parenthood has done is erroneous. Erroneous is a very fancy way of saying it's wrong. It's not correct. So I'm going to show you Elizabeth Warren. Let the woman speak for herself. She's so incredible. She's doing great things for the state of Massachusetts. And I'm going to let her take it away, and then let you guys think for yourselves what the impact of the decision really means for women and men in America.
I come to the Senate floor today to ask my Republican colleagues a question. Do you have any idea what year it is? Did you fall down, hit your head, and think you woke up in the 1950s or the 1890s? Should we call for a doctor? Because I simply cannot believe that in the year 2015, the United States Senate would be spending its time trying to defund women's health care centers. You know, on second thought, maybe I shouldn't be that surprised. The Republicans have had a plan for years to strip away women's rights to make choices over our own bodies. Just look at the recent facts. In 2013, Republicans threatened to shut down the government unless they could change the law to let employers deny women access to birth control. In March of this year, Republicans held up a non-controversial bipartisan bill to stop human trafficking. Why? Because they demanded new anti-abortion restrictions to cover private funding meant to help the victims of human trafficking. In June, House Republicans passed a budget eliminating funding for the Title X Family Planning Program, the only federal grant program that provides birth control, HIV tests, STD screening, and other preventive services for poor and uninsured people. Over the past few years, Republicans have voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, more than 50 times, including the portions that require insurers to cover contraception. And let's be clear, it's not just Congress. Over the past 5 years, Republican state legislators have passed nearly 300 new restrictions on abortion access. This year alone, Republican state legislators have passed more than 50 new restrictions on women's access to legal health care. So, Madam President, let's be really clear about something. The Republican scheme to defund Planned Parenthood is not some sort of surprised response to a highly edited video. Nope, the Republican vote to defund Planned Parenthood is just one more piece of a deliberate, methodical, orchestrated right-wing attack on women's rights. And I'm sick and tired of it. Women everywhere are sick and tired of it. The American people are sick and tired of it. Scheduling this vote during the week of a big Fox News presidential primary debate, days before candidates take trips to Iowa or New Hampshire, isn't just some clever gimmick. This is an all-out effort to build support to take away a woman's right to control her own body and access to medical care she may need. Now, this affects all of us. Whatever your age, wherever you live, I guarantee that you know someone who has used Planned Parenthood health centers. No one may mention it at Thanksgiving dinner or post it on Facebook for the whole world to know, but just look at the facts. 1 in 5 women in America is a Planned Parenthood patient at least once in her life. Every single year, nearly 2.7 million women and men show up for help at Planned Parenthood. Why do so many people use Planned Parenthood? Because they're nonprofit and they're open. More than half of Planned Parenthood centers are located in areas without ready access to health care. You know, women who can't get appointments anywhere else go to Planned Parenthood for Pap tests and cancer screening. Couples go to Planned Parenthood for STD treatments or pregnancy tests. Young people go to Planned Parenthood for birth control. And yes, 3% of patients visit Planned Parenthood for a safe and legal abortion with a doctor who will show compassion and care for a woman who is making one of the most difficult decisions of her entire life. But just to be clear, even though the abortions performed at Planned Parenthood are safe and legal, the federal government is not paying for any of them. Not one dime. For almost 40 years, the federal government has prohibited federal funding for abortions, except in the case of rape, incest, or life endangerment. Most of the money Planned Parenthood receives from the government comes in the form of Medicaid patients for medical care provided to low-income patients, the same payments that any other doctor or clinic receives for providing cancer screenings or other medical exams. The rest of Planned Parenthood's federal funding comes from Title X that provides birth control to low-income and uninsured people, the same program the House Republicans voted to cut in June. The government doesn't fund abortions, period. A vote today to defund Planned Parenthood is not a vote to defund abortions. It's a vote to defund cancer screenings and birth control and basic health care for millions of women. I want to say to my Republican colleagues, the year is 2015, not 1955 and not 1895. Women have lived through a world where backward-looking ideologues tried to interfere with the basic health decisions made by a woman and her doctor, and we are not going back. Not now, not ever. The Republican plan to defund Planned Parenthood is a Republican plan to defund women's health care. For my daughter, for my granddaughters, for people all across Massachusetts and all across this country. I stand with Planned Parenthood.
So that's a clip from Senator Elizabeth Warren, and it's very, very powerful because not only does she evoke her own lineage and her own time, but she also, again, it's really, really scary because, again, she talks about like this is not 1950 and this is not the day before the suffragette movement either. Yet there is very much these actions that are taken based on this very ignorant rhetoric that affect women's access to health care. Again, just remember, like she said, they're not funding abortions. Abortions are only 3% of what Planned Parenthood does. So it's so important when you're going through the news. There's a lot of hate speech that's happening right now in these debates. Like I said, be informed, but go back and talk to your friends, lean into your family, start to build community, and start to get to know people off of your computer screen so you can really gain support during this time and start to do something. And thank you, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Cambridge resident, for really sharing those words. Have a great evening.